Hello and welcome to National Park Wild. I'm Eric, and happy Halloween. I wanted to make a sort of Halloween special, but I couldn't really think of that much. But what I'm doing today is ranking the top 10 scariest U.S. national park animals. Before we begin, I must make it clear that this is not going to be the kind of list where it's like, sharks are the scariest because of Jaws, or that kind of thing. It's going to be, based on my experiences in parks, which animals seem to have the biggest intimidation factor. It's not a list that takes super seriously, but it somewhat fits with Halloween, and even though it's not on my usual upload schedule, I did want to get something out today. Let's jump right in. Number 10 is the mountain lion, or the puma or cougar, whatever you want to call it. I have not actually seen one in the wild, but they do have a bit of intimidation factor to them because of the signs in some parks, such as Big Bend National Park, saying, watch out, there's mountain lions in the trail. I know if I actually had a run-in with one, it'd probably be a lot scarier and much closer to number 1 on the list, but I find mountain lions still have that intimidation factor to them. Number 9, ticks. Ticks could have been higher on here, but because it's more a bit of apprehension running into them on the trail than a fear that they're going to, eat you alive, I just find ticks are very frustrating animals to deal with. When they're on you, that's pretty frustrating, frightening, and sometimes things get bad, like Lyme disease. So ticks can be somewhat intimidating, even though they're tiny bugs, but they definitely deserve a spot on this list. Number 8 is bison. Besides all of the news stories you hear pretty much every week now about a bison in Yellowstone or in South Dakota attacking someone, when you're out there with bison, I don't think they're as scary as some other large mammals, but they can be intimidating given their size. They weigh over a ton in many cases, and you know if they charge at you, you will lose. They often get very up close to cars and such. You just have to know to keep your distance, and I think if you do that, you won't have much issue with bison, but they are still large, and the horns, you might be scared that they would gore you, but I still think bison are fun animals to see, even with that intimidation factor. Number 7 is the coyote. Coyotes, I find when I go to a park, look at you for a little while. That's really where the fear comes in. You think they might start running right at you, even if you're a pretty far distance away. But coyotes, particularly the one I saw in Yosemite on my most recent visit, that was a bit frightening to me. Fortunately, nothing happened, but coyotes are a bit higher than I thought they would be as a result. Number 6 is the black bear. Even though they're smaller, black bears are fairly intimidating. Obviously, many think bears are like the scariest animal you can have in America. I'll disagree, as they tend to mind their own business and there are not that many attacks, even compared to some other mammals and other just lesser animals that are below them on the list. But black bears do still have a great size to them, and you know that if you fought with them, you would lose. On a similar note of fighting to an animal and losing, number 5 is the grizzly bear. Apparently, a lot of people, when surveyed, thought they could take a grizzly bear in a fight, but I don't think they would want to try because grizzly bears are fairly significantly larger than black bears in most cases, and they seem more aggressive by appearance. Now, I've always learned, play dead if you see the brown one. I believe the rhyme went, if it's brown, lay down, if it's black, fight back, for grizzly versus black bears. So I think the fact that you're able to fight against a black bear potentially, but not a grizzly bear, definitely tells me that grizzly bears are a more intimidating and frightening animal to encounter. Number 4, wolf. A wolf is a very interesting one to come by because they're rather elusive. When you do see them, the thing that's intimidating about them is just the fact that they're like coyotes, but to the extreme. I feel like wolves, the way they travel in packs and the way you wouldn't normally see a ton of them, it makes you wonder if there are more surrounding you in a way you don't really get that feeling with bears. When I've heard wolves howl in the wild, that is a very eerie sound. And that's much scarier than hearing a bear roar, potentially. I haven't really heard many sounds from bears, but wolves howling, that can send chills down my spine. Number 3 is rattlesnakes. Rattlesnakes, I've only encountered once. It was going along a trail and my dad almost stepped on it. But the thing that's scariest about rattlesnakes is how many signs there are about them. They talk about, in Badlands National Park, for example, how they can be anywhere and how they are venomous. So you got to be pretty careful on a lot of trails. And while you're not really going on a trail thinking, oh no, is a wolf going to be around the corner? You might be looking at the ground constantly to see if there's rattlesnakes. They just are fairly frightening to come across. Fortunately, I don't know too many people who've gotten attacked by them, and they very rarely kill. But they still are something you don't want to risk running in with. Number 2 is the moose. Moose is the scariest of mammals for me. That might surprise some, but bull moose in particular, they're so large, and I've never felt more intimidated by an animal than I did with a bull moose in Isle Royale. The antlers, of course, are massive, and the rest of the body, it's huge. And one thing I know, compared to bears, moose actually seem way more aggressive to the point where if you step on a twig, it's totally possible the hairs on the moose's back will stick up and it'll quickly turn its head to look at you. And you do not want it to do that. If it does, there's a chance it'll charge. And moose, they run fast, and they're massive. Surviving a run with a moose seems less likely than with a bear. So, seeing those in the wild, while awesome and great for photos, can be pretty frightening, and you definitely want to risk maybe using a silent shutter if you're going to get a picture of it. That said, number 1, maybe a weird pick, American alligators, or also crocodiles technically, but mainly the alligator. Now, this is not one where I think it's going to attack me when it's in the wild. I see these somewhat often. I live in Florida, so why do they scare me? There's something about looking at them. The way they don't really move. They can be gliding through the water, but their heads will stay completely still. Their mouths sometimes slightly open, just kind of going around. They move like some sort of zombie, and it seems like at the right moment they're ready to strike you. Maybe that's just some sort of fear I've developed in my mind, and I don't really mind it when I see an alligator. I'll be like, oh cool, a photo. I'm not really that scared it'll attack me. But I still think there's something about the way they look, the way they are almost frozen in time, anytime they're going from place to place. That is what scares me more than any large mammal or tick could ever do. And that is the National Park Wild Halloween special. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this somewhat weird video. But comment down below what animals scare you and any other interesting run-ins you've had with animals in parks. Subscribe for more National Park content. I'll see you next time.